Hi everyone, this is Dr. Mike, host of the free iTunes podcast, Psychiatric Secrets Revealed with Dr. Mike, but that's not why I'm here today. This is another Saving Savvy episode. This time we're going to talk about cameras to take when going on a trip or traveling. Now, most of my episodes are actually based on incidents that happen in my life, and this is no exception. In my professional life, I get to talk to a lot of people, and some are kind enough to share things with me. And two actually went on separate African safaris this last summer and brought back pictures. Pictures were very cool, but the device that they used to take them kind of surprised me. It was an iPhone. Both used iPhones. Well, just the other day, I was talking to a good old time friend of mine who was also going on a spectacular trip to Italy, and she was saying that she was thinking about buying a new camera. So I thought I would do this little video cast based on those two sorts of experiences. And so today we're going to talk about 5 different classes of cameras that you might consider taking on a vacation or trip. And in fact, we're going to look at 6 different cameras just to get an idea. These are older cameras, so I'm not recommending these particular cameras. They're just kind of illustrating different types of cameras. So let's take a look. Well, first we have, this is not an iPhone, but we have a nice smartphone here that has a camera on the back. Now, cell phones used to take absolutely terrible pictures, and now they can take pleasant little snapshots, but they have a lot of limitations. Even the ones that have 5 or 8 megapixels really aren't at the same caliber as a better phone or as a better camera. And the reason is that the sensor in these cameras is really tiny. 6 to 10 times smaller than what you'd find in a compact digi camera, so they don't really have a lot of great light gathering capability, which means that they're not going to work terribly well in low light situations. Let's say if you're in a museum or something like that. Beyond that, the lens quality isn't very good, and it doesn't really have an optical zoom, and if you're fortunate enough to have a flash, that's pretty anemic too. So cell phones are great because you can carry them with you. That's wonderful. You always have them with you. That's wonderful. So they're great for a quick shot, but they're probably not going to give you that picture that you're going to want to hang on the wall someplace. Another advantage they have, however, is because they are cell phones, they're connected to the greater internet, so it's very easy to send a picture up to Facebook, for instance, or email one, or to even instant message one to a friend if you choose to. But they do have their limitations. One last caution, if you're in a country other than your country, be very careful about data plans, because if you use your cell phone to send a picture, that requires your data plan, which could be astronomically expensive in a different country. The next group, probably the most versatile as far as what most people will use, is the compact digicam. This is just one example from a few years ago. Compact digicams are relatively inexpensive, and you can go to any Walmart or Radio Shack or Best Buy or whatever shop you happen to have and often find a perfectly fine digicam for about $90 to $150. These cameras have gotten more and more sophisticated. So even this model, which is pretty old, has an automatic panorama mode where you can just go across like this and it's going to do a panorama. A lot of these newer cameras have intelligent modes where they'll actually determine if you're taking an action shot or a scenery shot or an interior shot and adjust things accordingly. And they'll even have sophisticated features to make things like low light shots a little better. But they're hampered by a couple of things. They also have very, very small sensors. Now, not nearly as small as here. Remember, these are 6 to 10 times bigger, but still significantly smaller than what you're going to find in better cameras. And that does limit low light performance. So if you're going to take a lot of shots inside museums or cathedrals or whatever, these may not be the best choice. Naturally, since everything is packaged fairly cheaply, although the lens will be fine, it's not going to be the super highest quality and things like that. Typically, these cameras have zoom ranges between, oh, let's say 3x optical to 5x optical now, and they'll do a fine job in many, many situations. But let's say you want something that requires zoom. Okay, you're going on this safari like these fortunate people that I know, or and so you want to do something where you can really zoom up on those animals. Well, then you're talking about a super zoom camera, and there's actually 2 different categories with super zooms. This is one of them. It's, as you can see, it's not that much bigger than just a regular digi zoom. And do I have any batteries? We have batteries. You can see that it has a nice long lens on it, and it will do all these kind of amazing things. That lens will come out quite a bit. This particular model has a 10x zoom, which is actually pretty significant. But you can get these little cameras up to, at this point anyways, 18x zoom, and in a lot of different brands. This is a very popular category. Now, one thing that I would caution is don't get too zoom crazy. So there's not really much difference between 16x and 18x or 10x and 12x or that sort of thing. Now there is a difference between 10x and 18x. So you want something that's convenient that you're going to carry around. The heart of these cameras are basically the same as a little Digicam. So we're talking about a smaller sensor. Although the lenses can be nice, they're still kind of basic lenses, and they're not going to be something like a $2,000 lens that you get in a DSLR or something like that. So they are limited. The other thing to remember is that the more zoom you have, the more you're going through atmosphere and the more you're looking at the personal imperfections of the camera. So if you go way out there, you might think, wow, I'm going to get these great, fantastic close-up shots. Not necessarily the case, for the very simple reason that you're shooting through all this atmosphere, and probably the shot that you're going to get is going to look a little hazy and blurry because of those facts. Now that's not the case if you're trying to zoom up on something that's really small but close by, but certainly if you're looking at that ship out on the horizon or that sort of thing, there are zoom limitations. But these are very, very nice cameras for travelers because they're so versatile. They're small. They have a lot of automatic features just like the regular Digicams, and they have, in addition, that super zoom lens. Now, kind of the sister to those is this. This looks like a very fancy DSLR, but it's not. This is also a super zoom camera, but it's in a bigger form factor. The disadvantage of this is that form factor. So it's heavier, it's bigger, you can't just shove it in your pocket or your purse, but it does offer some advantages. Usually the zooms on these cameras are greater than the zooms on these cameras. So these might go from 20 to maybe 35x, but again, don't get too zoom crazy. But they'll also have more features. So on this one, for instance, there's an articulated LCD screen on the back. Sorry about those fingerprints. You'll have this one actually has a hot shoe that you can use. So these are more feature laden depending on the particular one, but they're basically going to take pictures similar to a Digicam. Personally, if I'm traveling, I probably would go with this because it's so much more convenient, and this is just a lot bigger and clunkier, and the picture quality itself probably won't be that much better. But if you want better pictures, this is a compact system camera. I talked about this. I did a whole show on this, also called a hybrid camera, and a bunch of other names like interchangeable lens, mirrorless camera, and that sort of thing. And these basically have sensors that are the same size found in DSLR. So they're huge, and they're going to be great for a lot of different light conditions. So if you're in that dark church or in that catacomb or whatever, a compact system camera or a hybrid camera is the way to go. They are more expensive, but you have interchangeable lenses. So here's a little pancake lens that makes the camera a little bit smaller. You can get a telephoto lens like this if you want to zoom up on things. You'll be carrying more, but actually this is a lot lighter and more convenient to carry than this, if you see. And this is the much, much, much better camera at a price. You pay more money for it. These have a lot of automatic features too. But they also have a lot of manual features if you're interested in getting kind of fancy with your camera work. Lastly, of course, we have the DSLR. This is my old ancient 2003 Canon Rebel, the original Rebel. This is only a 3x lens on here, 3 times lens. Look how huge it is. These cameras generally will take the best pictures. Now, these will take very good pictures too, and in some cases they'll be as good as these. But overall, these are the top dogs, the best choices of lenses, fanciest electronics and all that. Start around $500 for a very basic model that will take pictures similar to this guy. But then, of course, they go up into the stratosphere. So if you want the absolute best type of pictures, take this. Would I take this on a trip? No. I never do. I use this for portraits. I use this for little photo walks and things, but I would not take it on a trip. It's just too big and it's too bulky, and I have all this other junk that I'm carrying, and that's kind of what I want to do. So what are my bottom line recommendations? I wrote these down so I wouldn't forget. First of all, think about how technical are you. You know, if you're not a real technical person, try to avoid the cameras that have all these super technical features, because you're going to pay for something that you're just not going to use. If you leave the camera on automatic all the time, then why spend the extra money? What types of shots do you like to take? So if you're doing mostly vacation shots, here's a building, here's a monument, here's the Eiffel Tower, that sort of thing, any of the cameras will take decent pictures, and certainly, even something like a simple digicam is going to give you excellent results. Especially if you're looking at snapshots, you're not going to blow these up to poster size pictures. The other important thing is, how much do you want and how much do you want to spend? So you can buy a little digicam. Let's say you spent all of your money on your trip, you have nothing left. You can actually buy a refurb digicam for $40 to $60. Just look at places like Overstock or Adorama or Tiger Direct, or a lot of these kind of places, eCost, they have these overflow cameras, and either they'll have refurbs or they'll have a little like last year's model's camera, which are perfectly good, and they'll be very, very inexpensive. If you want the top dog, well, then you're going to pay the top price. How important is size? Now, I would say size is very, very important. That's the reason why people use their cell phones all the time, because they have them with them. So if you like hauling around a lot of stuff, then go for something like this. If you're a real camera pro and you don't mind, that's great. But otherwise, I would stick with some of the cameras in the middle range, like a compact hybrid camera, which is fantastic, or a super zoom, or just your old digicam. More money often within a certain category means more features. It doesn't necessarily mean better quality pictures, although it may. It usually means you have like the LCD that pops out, or bigger zooms. That's that sort of a thing. If you don't use the features, it's a waste of money. And stick to name brands. This is very, very important. So a brand that you've heard of, brands like Canon, Nikon, Panasonic, Sony, Samsung, Olympus, Fuji, those are all good cameras, and likely, if you just walk in and you buy one, you say, oh, this one's nice, especially in the digicam range, you're probably going to be pretty happy. I would avoid off-brands or former brands. So for instance, Vivitar, which was a brand from the past, I think that name was just bought by some other company. They do make cute little cameras, but not very quality cameras, at least in my personal opinion. Consider bringing an extra battery, probably the most important tip I could give you. Nothing like being out there and the battery dies and you have this great shot and you can't take it. So definitely bring that extra battery. They're not very expensive. Brand names are probably better than off-brands, but in a pinch, even an off-brand, which you can get for just a few dollars on eBay or something, will probably work well. And the question is, do you need an extra memory card? I'd say bring one along. You probably won't use it, but they're cheap, and if your card malfunctions, you'll have one. But don't forget, with the current amount of memory that you can get in a memory card, literally you can take thousands of pictures, and that's probably more than enough. So those are my travel tips for travel cameras. If you're going on a trip or you're just looking for a nice camera for all-around use, hopefully this will be helpful for you. And beyond that, I'd say if you have some time, give my podcast a listen. It's totally free. It's on iTunes. Just search for Dr. Michael Kuna or Psychiatric Secrets Revealed with Dr. Mike. Thanks, and have a great day, and happy traveling.